Filipinos are a very spiritual people. Regardless of our personal spiritual beliefs, we believe that man was created in the image of God, that there can be no compromise on human rights and the dignity of human life. This is enshrined in the first paragraph of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which reads, "Whereas the recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world." We also believe in accountability, in the principle that whatever we sow, we shall reap. These are some of the reasons why we are here today: to strengthen the United Nations Human Rights Council's mechanism through our participation, our showcasing of the Philippines' achievement in the field of human rights, by answering your questions to the best of our ability, by learning from your experiences, and through new media, by bringing human rights closer to each and every Filipino and all people around the world. Mr. President, Your Excellencies, friends of the Filipino people, magandang umaga po, good morning. It is an honor for the Philippine team to present the Philippines' third cycle Universal Periodic Review Report. It is the first time that the Philippines is represented by both the executive and legislative branches of government in presenting the UPR report. Hopefully one day, the judiciary will also be represented, as many human rights issues and challenges like the right to speedy and fair trial, legal issues on reproductive health, fall under the ambit of the Philippine judiciary. This clearly shows the Philippines' strong and unwavering commitment towards the UPR. It shows how we value the significant innovation of the UN Human Rights Council, wherein a country submits itself to a periodic review of its human rights record. Based on equal treatment for all countries, we deeply appreciate that the UPR includes the sharing of best human rights practices around the world, giving us that opportunity to learn from each other while understanding that not one country has the monopoly of both human rights challenges and human rights best practices. We greatly appreciate the 109 countries which have registered in the speakers list after the presentation of the Philippines UPR report. Thank you, Your Excellencies, for caring for the Filipino people. Your Excellencies, President Duterte took the helm of the Philippine government on the demand of our people for real change. Filipinos long for the rule of law, for equality, for respect of human rights of all Filipinos, regardless of their faith, their social status, whether they are rich or poor, middle class, lower class, upper class, whether their sexual orientation, their age, whether they're young, middle-aged, or elderly, their disabilities, ethnicity, or whatever they are, or whether they are from urban or rural areas. Our report includes our progress since our last review in May 2012. But because we are only allowed 10,700 words, it does not detail the present challenges of the Filipino in the Philippines and all around the world. Challenges due to crime, prohibited drugs, and corruption. Poverty, lack of access to quality health services, education, housing, and other social services are so real to our people that 10 million Filipinos have been forced to look for employment outside the Philippines. Our overseas Filipino workers, our modern-day heroes, sacrifice for what is the most important thing to them in this world, which is their families. Unfortunately, part of their sacrifice is being far away from their families and not being able to bring up their own children. Our report likewise does not detail how resilient we are as a people after major natural disasters hit the country, and how we struggle with elite democracy, wherein only a few families control most of the Philippine economy, or how drugs and crime have become a fact of life. With your permission, Mr. President, Your Excellencies, I'd like to show you a video. These are actual footages from a closed-circuit television, CCTV videos, and some newspaper clippings to show Your Excellencies a glimpse of what has become part of the normal lives of Filipinos before President Duterte took office. Can you show the video, please? Crimes committed mostly in highly urbanized areas in the Philippines in broad daylight. There was impunity, but it was from the criminals and from the drug lords. Examples of headlines that we saw, the previous slide, please. Previous slide. Mom financed drug addiction by letting dealer rape her child. 71-year-old woman raped by alleged drug addict. Next slide. 3 UPLB guards held for drugs, rape of 2 women. 4-month-old baby kidnapped, raped in Karkar City. 1 woman or child is raped every 53 minutes. We can spend the whole day with news clippings of how crime has become a part of life and how desensitized society has become, even hearing gruesome crimes of a rape of a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 4-month-year-old, or even deaths of mother and child, or even a father being shot by his son. The new administration is committed to real change, to institute the reforms and to protect the human rights of all Filipinos. The new administration continues to be committed to the obligations accompanying the various international treaties ratified in the previous years. Hence, the Duterte administration has vowed to integrate human rights agenda in its developmental initiatives, to protect all, especially the most vulnerable sectors, including but not limited to indigenous people, children, women, migrant workers, elderly, domestic workers, persons with disabilities, farmers, laborers, and members of the LGBT community. Guided by its Philippine Development Plan 2017 to 2022, it adopts a culture-sensitive perspective, a gender-sensitive paradigm, and a human rights-based approach in public service. In keeping with the state's duty to promote and protect human rights and fundamental freedoms, the People's Campaign Against Illegal Drugs is pursued to preserve lives of Filipino people and prevent the country into turning into a narco state. At all times, the Duterte administration seeks to uphold the rule of law. In fact, the President Duterte has a policy of zero tolerance for abuse of law enforcers. This statement and policy of President Duterte is rarely, if at all, shown in Western media. So again, with your permission, Mr. President, Your Excellencies, let me show you a short clip of the State of the Nation address of the President, which is the policy of the Philippine government.
During my inauguration last 2016, I said that the fight against criminality and illegal drugs and corruption will be relentless and sustained. I reiterate that commitment today, and that is why I call on the Philippine National Police, the barangay chairman, the mayors and governors, are all those occupying seats of power and authority not to lower their guard. There will be no let-up in this campaign. Double your efforts, triple them if need be. We will not stop until the last drug lord the last financier and the last pusher have surrendered or put behind bars or below the ground if they so wish. To our police officers and other officials, do your job, and you will have the unwavering support of the Office of the President. I will be with you all the way. Abuse your authority, and there will be a hell to pay. For you will have become worse than criminality itself. I order the National Police Commission to hasten the conduct of investigation and adjudication of administrative cases against police officers involved in criminal activity and illegal activities, and prescribe policies on lifestyle checks for PNP members.
Excellencies, the government adopts a holistic and balanced approach to address the problems of criminality and illegal drugs. In addition to the strengthening of law enforcement and judicial mechanisms, the government also encourages private sector participation to ensure more effective and sustainable rehabilitation and reintegration programs for the surrendering drugs. Again, this is rarely shown in the Western media, and allow us to hear directly from our President the policy on rehabilitation and reintegration.
We will create an interagency committee on illegal drugs that will integrate efforts and strengthen the partnerships of all stakeholders. The reservists will be mobilized for information campaign against drug use and dissemination of information regarding drug rehabilitation program being offered by the government. Let us also strengthen our ROTC program to instill love of country and good citizenship. We will also prioritize the rehabilitation of drug users. We will increase the number of residential treatment and rehabilitation facilities in all regions of the country. The Armed Forces of the Philippines will facilitate the preparation for the use of military camps and facilities for drug rehabilitation.
Mr. President, security and human rights are not incompatible. Let me repeat, security and human rights are not incompatible. In fact, without human security, humans are vulnerable to all kinds of abuses. Human rights is not only about making people feel safe, but it is actually about making people safe. Illegal drugs can easily destroy a whole generation. The Philippines has a very young population. It is projected that in 2017, this year, we will have 32,700,000 Filipinos at the age of 14. That is already the size of a country. And below age 14 and below, this will be 31% of our population. Do you blame our parents? Do you blame the state in taking care of our young people because they're the most vulnerable to the temptations and evils of prohibited drugs? Unless we recognize the relationship of illegal drugs, especially crystal meth or methamphetamine hydrochloride, to violent crimes and poverty, we will not understand the Philippine situation. In other countries where marijuana, cocaine is used, violence is associated only with the gangs or the drug lords or the suppliers. The fight for business is where the violence is. But you would not hear of people taking marijuana or cocaine, killing their fathers, raping 5 years old, raping their sister. But if you look at the World Health Organization's report, it pointed out that the dependence and chronic usage of amphetamine-type stimulants, ATS, is associated with psychosis and causes cognitive impairment, aggression and violence, and social and family disruption. No? Prevalent drug in the Philippines is the methamphetamine hydrochloride, which really leads to violence. At this point, Mr. President, allow me to address the elephant in the room: the Philippine government's campaign on illegal drugs. The internet and social media have changed and continue to change the world. Now suddenly, anyone, anywhere in the world can have access to information and the ability to communicate with his or her peers and with his or her leaders. Traditional media is no longer the only source of news and information. Allow me to take this opportunity to present to you true facts and real numbers instead of alternative facts, which unfortunately have been spread by the critics of the Duterte administration, widely quoted by some Philippine media outlets, then used and accepted and repeated by the Western media. First, killing in the Philippines, and for your reference, Your Excellencies, we're providing a slide. Killings in the Philippines in the previous administration, 2009 to 2015, 2010 to 2015, varied from a low of 11,000 to a high of 16,000 per year. Let me repeat, 11 to 16,000 people were killed between 2009 to 2015 per year. Why wasn't this reported? Why is there no apples-to-apples comparison between the figures of the past administration and the present administration? Because some of the critics of the Duterte administration, including our very own Commission on Human Rights, a senator critic, and some local media, changed the definition of extrajudicial killings, therefore deceiving the public and foreign media into believing that there is a sudden wave of state-sponsored extrajudicial killings in the Philippines. This is absolutely not true. One, there is no state-sponsored killings in the Philippines. Two, there is no sudden wave of killings. We are not asking you to take our word for it. We are asking you not to take the words of the critics either. We are asking you, through the mechanisms of this Honorable Council, to interview our people, to go to our communities, to visit the Philippines, and to see for yourself the truth, the real numbers, which one are real news and which one are fake news. Administrative Order Number 35, signed by then President Benigno Aquino III, defined extrajudicial killings as the killing of members or advocates of cause-oriented organizations like labor leaders, activists in the environment, media practitioners and activists, resulting in a very low number of supposed EJKs in the past administration. However, for the current administration, a different definition is being used. Suddenly, extrajudicial killing now refers to any death outside those caused by natural causes, accidents, or those ordered by courts. And we do not have a death penalty, so none are ordered by courts. Make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, one death or any death or killing is one too much. However, there is a deliberate attempt to include all homicides as EJKs or killings related to the campaign against criminality and illegal drugs, and that these are state-sponsored, which is absolutely not true. Look at the numbers, Your Excellency. On the second slide, 1.2 1.66 million pushers and users have surrendered voluntarily. They are being rehabilitated and given a second chance. Again, in reports of the Philippine Anti-Illegal Drug Campaign, this is never emphasized, in fact, rarely shown or included. Third, in the six-year period prior to the Duterte administration, the prior administration made 93,197 drug operations, or conducted that number of drug operations. Now, barely 10 months into the Duterte administration, a total of 53,503 anti-illegal drug operations have been conducted. The reality is the numbers are a product of more police operations. Fourth, 64,917 drug personalities have been arrested, are being accorded due process, are undergoing the legal processes under the Philippine Constitution and our statutes. Again, Your Excellencies, they were arrested, not killed. Next slide. The real number for homicide cases is 9,432, well within the 11,000 to 16,000 average in past administration. There is no new wave of killings in the Philippines, just a political tactic of changing definitions. Of course, any death is too much, so we have to lower the cases of homicide, and we can only do that by fighting crimes and illegal drugs and protecting our citizens. 2,692 deaths resulting from presumed legitimate law enforcement operations. Why are there more deaths due to police operations? Because law enforcers are now conducting operations every day. And the ratio of those who surrender and those who violently resist is consistent. Therefore, more operations lead to more arrests, more surrenderies, and very unfortunately, more who resist violently, thus resulting in more deaths. Why presume legitimate law enforcement operation? Because any death resulting from a law enforcement operation is presumed legitimate under Philippine law, although it is automatically subject to investigation by the PNP, by the Philippine National Police, and by the National Police Commission. Some have been giving warnings of a possible strongman rule. Yet these critics conveniently forget to mention that the Duterte administration has increased, almost doubled, the budget of its most outspoken critic, the Commission of Human Rights. From 439 million pesos, or approximately $8 million in 2016, they now have a 724 million peso budget, or $14 million budget this year. The President has institutionalized the freedom of information through an executive order, which no other Philippine president has done, and put up a direct line, dial 8888, to the office of the President, where citizens may complain of abuses by any government official or employee. Sounds like a very democratic government to me. We would like to reiterate paragraphs 164 and 165 of the Philippine Report, Your Excellencies. To date, the government of the Philippines is in the process of drafting its Philippine Human Rights Action Plan for the next 5 years. As our Philippine President expressed during his first State of the Nation address in July 2016, there can never be real, tangible, and felt development without making our people feel safe. Again, there can never be real, tangible, and felt development without making our people feel secure. The Philippines shall implement a right-based approach to the development and governance. As the government of the Philippines improves our people's welfare, human rights must work to uplift human dignity. Paragraph 165, the government of the Philippines is committed to an open, inclusive, constructive, and transparent review before the UPR working group and continues to support the UPR process and the United Nations human rights system. Government of the Philippines will engage relevant stakeholders in deciding which recommendations to accept, therefore ensuring a successful implementation against the backdrop of present national challenges the Philippine government is facing. Again, the UPR of the UN Human Rights Council is a unique and effective process and mechanism. One of the reasons it is very effective is the success of the United Nations Human Rights Council in insulating the UPR process from being politicized. However, the UPR is not the only mechanism of the UN that deals with human rights. The system of sending special rapporteurs has oftentimes been effective, but sometimes this can create more harm than good, especially when human rights is politicized. Dialogue is effective when there is mutual trust and respect, and the aim is constructive engagement. As a general rule, engagement cannot be adversarial. Please take a look at the statements of tweets of this special rapporteur. Can you put the slide on? Well, Your Excellencies, if you were Filipino and you read these slides, would you think that the rapporteur is impartial, is factual, is fair? I already read the WHO description of the types of drugs that is used in the Philippines. Yet, this rapporteur, in a speech in the Philippines, cited one doctor saying there's no evidence Shabu leads to violence or causes brain damage. She may have good intentions, but she caused a wave in the Philippines now of parents, brothers, sisters, OFWs, who have drug dependence in their family, who have been violent against them, and now they're saying, why is this person who is an official of the UN telling us that there is no evidence that it is associated with violence? There is a generally accepted principle in law that those who come to court must come with clean hands. Therefore, it is essential that rapporteurs are not only factual, fair, and just, but they must also appear to be factual, fair, and just. As stated in paragraph 158 of the Philippine Report, Government of Philippines fully supports special procedures, process of the Human Rights Council, and will extend invitation to special rapporteurs at the most appropriate time, provided they prove their openness, independence, and willingness to engage the Philippine government in a constructive dialogue. In closing, the Philippine government under President Duterte is committed to real change, to peace and development, and to addressing the problems of poverty and inequality. Understanding where the Philippines is coming from is essential to our discussions in improving human rights in our country. From a decades-long communist rebellion, from centuries-long unrest, rebellion in the South, from misunderstanding with our Muslim brothers in the South, from inequality brought about by social injustices, partly caused by corruption and the few political and economic elites controlling most of the Philippine economy, to the powerful criminal and drug syndicates who act with impunity. We are addressing all of this, Your Excellency. Peace talks, reforms to make our system of taxation more progressive, and our economy more inclusive are all underway, while we struggle at the same time to address the problems of drugs, crimes, and corruption. But there are other challenges to human rights like terrorism. Terrorism is a national and regional threat. It is an international threat. As the world has painfully learned, terrorism has no boundaries and has no notion of human rights. President Duterte and his administration are exerting all efforts to address this threat and to bridge the difference across our region so that regional peace, stability, and sustainable development can cease being a dream and start being a reality. At this point, Your Excellencies, allow the Philippine delegation to thank from the bottom of our heart our ASEAN brothers and sisters and the many ASEAN partners who are working with us for a drug-free, terrorism-free region, and for a region of peace, stability, and sustainable development. We need everyone's help to make this a better world. We are committed to change. We are committed to the rule of law. We are committed to upholding human rights. God bless us with world peace, prosperity, stability, and sustainable development. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Senator Cayetano.